Beacon, Fridays at 6:30 EST, with your hosts Michael Seville and Joel Simmons. A channel whose focus is liberty. A place where the lessons discussed and taught will create openings to a more open and freer mindset. A mindset where you may reach the height of your potential and excel. Here are your hosts, Mike and Joel.
Oh my gosh.
Community Beacon, Fridays at 6:30 EST, with your hosts Michael Seville and Joel Simmons. A channel whose focus is liberty. A place where the lessons discussed and taught will create openings to a more open and freer mindset. A mindset where you may reach the height of your potential and excel. Here are your hosts, Mike and Joel.
What is going on? What is going on, people? It is Community Beacon, which means it's Friday. It's about 6:30, and you are in the place to be. I am Michael Seville, your real estate guy here in Northern Palm Beach County. On the other side of the screen, we got the co-host with the most, my brother from another mother, Joel from the Tenacity Foundation. What you say, brother? What you say?
Hey, man. Good to see you in the screen again. Good to see you.
It's been a while. I know you are. So I'm going to do this really quickly, guys. Housekeeping. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Always remember, on Mondays, we got What It Takes hitting there right around 9 o'clock. Come check me out on all of my channels, YouTube and Facebook. Of course, on Wednesdays, we got It Starts With Who, brother? It starts with
me.
Absolutely. 12:30 every Wednesday, dropping on YouTube at the Tenacity Foundation's YouTube channel. Brother, this is the week of the 21st. Who you got next week?
All right. Okay. All right. So we got Kaylee. Kaylee's a real sweet lady. She brings a charming story. So you all will definitely enjoy her. She brings a charming story about her struggles and how she came over. Yeah.
Okay, absolutely. And of course, on Friday, you got Community Beacon. We like to culminate our weeks with Community Beacon, 6:30 on Friday. I'm done. Brother, go, because
yeah, man.
Let's go.
Oh, no, I appreciate you. You know, I enjoyed that conversation that we were diving in, and you're like, hey, all right, let's go. Let's get this one out. And, you know, I appreciate that because, you know, that's what we need to do. And, you know, sometimes you just got to make that decision and make it happen fast, you know. So I don't know if y'all remember what we were talking about last week. We started to talk about some different boundaries, and we got into it about marriage and whatnot, you know, and Mike started talking about, you know, giving respect to ladies, you know, to the women for being able to stick to it, you know. And this is the piece that I wanted to introduce, you know, because I was speaking with one you know, one of the guys that I do coach, you know, and I'm just talking to him about it. And here's a major thing. Mike referenced the book behind him, that red book behind him that says From Good to Great. And I think that was a great thing to reference because I just wanted to make sure that we all understand that when you get married, some of us are getting married very young, you know, you getting married at, you know, 18, 19, 20, 21, all the way up until about 20, 26, 27. These are my numbers. You're not going to find this in a book. Maybe you will, but this is what I found. If you're getting married in between those ages, there's a lot of maturing that must happen because you have no idea what living life truly is. That, but every 7 years, do you realize that your entire body, except for your brain, every single cell in your body has died and been reborn? There is nothing that is the same about you. I mean, of course, you're going to grow the same features and they're going to change and with the age and whatnot. But your entire being is like a new creature. Every 7 years, every cell reproduces except for the brain, but the brain develops and it does not any longer think the same. What am I getting at? You got a totally different person that you've married. And so when we talk about from good to great, I don't know, I haven't read that book, but I think that was an entryway to talk about this, is that the person that you marry that you believe was good may be going on their way to becoming great, or they may be going on their way to stagnation, or they may be going on their way to not being so great, period. And that may go for the wife or for the husband. It can go either which way. And so that stick-to-itiveness is growth, y'all. It's growth. You got to grow with them, and you got to. So many people, they don't survive a marriage after 2 years. Mike, he can pull up stats like that. So I know that he can probably get us some real good stats, but it's like 1 year, 3 year, 5 years. Those are huge benchmarks in a person's marriage in the first few years of their life. It's 1 year, 3 year, 5 years. Huge benchmarks. Many of them aren't making it, especially nowadays, because in the older days, you stayed with your husband or your wife, irregardless of what was going on. Now, people would stay disgruntled with each other, never move beyond something, but still stay married. They would still stay married. Going back, 30, 40, 50 years, they would still stay married. Especially when we start going back into like the 60s, they still stayed married, because the thing about it was more difficult, especially in the culture of Black individuals. It was more difficult for you to live without somebody else, not to mention that the status of men and the status of women was so far separate that for a woman to leave her man, she might not be able to make it at all. Nowadays, there's so much equality that a woman can go out there and get a job and be able to make it on her own. Now, it's not to say that it's not difficult, because Mike can give you the stats also on the financial implications of a family and how easy it is for someone to stay. Anyway, I digress from that piece because I feel like I'm going down this rabbit hole. What I'm getting at is that
go down there with you.
I'm hitting on something, man. What I'm getting at to bring this to a point so I can share this floor with Mike. I don't want to take it all up.
But I got love to listen to this part of it. Go ahead, I'm open.
I appreciate it. What I'm getting at is that it's not always perfect. So that process is what I'm getting at. Is that sometimes that woman is so good. She's standing by her man, but there's a process in there. And sometimes that woman is not so good, and the man's got to stick by his woman. It's that process. And what does that mean? For whoever is listening, whether it's male or female, but I'm going to tell it from the man's standpoint of view, because I'm a man. You got to be so good in self-development. This is where we left off 2 weeks ago, when I told y'all about the 4 things that any person can do: words, people, and I never gave the last 2. The last 2 are environment and experience, and we can go into it deeper. But you got to be so good at your own self-development that you are able to control yourself and the gravity around you to produce the best outcome for yourself and those that are around you. And we can get deeper into this thing, because I'm ready to explain some dynamic things about how doing that can change your experience and change the experience of others that are surrounding you. What you say about it, brother? That's a lot.
Let me. Yeah, you. I'm listening, brother. You know, this is your wheelhouse. I love you, the wheelhouse, especially in regards to marriage and cultivating long and lasting relationships. I just wanted to give a couple of stats. You did mention how many the first marriages that end in divorce last about 8 years. So you're right on. After 7 years, just going to, and maybe there is some type of connection to this. Maybe there is some type of connection to where after, you know, your body regenerates, like you mentioned, 7 years, and on that 8th year, you're a new person. So it's like, did this person grow or did they not grow with me? Man, I think we're in such an interesting place with relationships and marriages and society and exactly how society works. Definitely in our community, where in 1950, most Black people were married at a rate of 80%. Women were married at 80%. To right now, where it's less than 25%, where, you know, we have the lowest percentages of marriages of any culture. The next lowest culture is around 50%, which is white women. So it's an interesting thought process to it. And you also mentioned something in regards to, you know, people sticking with it. Well, here's another study done where 70% of the divorces are initiated by women. And there's even higher percentage of college-educated women who initiate divorce at even higher rate. So college-educated women at a higher rate. And a lot of that does come with the fact that there is economic increase for women. At one point in time, women weren't making any money, right? So they had to have some stick-to-itiveness, so to speak, because there's also a stigma involved with divorces. And I think that stigma has kind of started as the years worn on, has worn out. And there's also incentivization to not work through certain things, you know, especially when we talk about family court. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, the way that family court is right now, man, you get ripped and turned upside down in family court, because they will take a lot of the stuff and they will hand it over to the woman for it. That's just the way it goes, for the most part. And then the kids are awarded to the women 95% of the time. I can go deeper. I'm gonna go quickly down this rabbit hole.
Do your thing.
Which is interesting because you really got to think about it. You got to understand that the governments are incentivized to incentivize, meaning that although family court is handled at the state level, the federal government incentivizes the state. There's close to $1 billion worth of monies that the federal government gives to each state to increase child support, to do certain things. That means that money goes directly into the system from the federal government. If any state, any city, any municipality, they love federal government money. The federal government can spend. That's one thing. So it's incentivized. So women are incentivized to actually go to do those different things. And when you look at the data, which is shown now, it shows that 70% gives your children the statistical disadvantage to come up in a single parent household, and specifically a woman-led single parent household. 70% people in jail, majority of girls end up becoming pregnant, kids dropping out of school, etc. And what's interesting, and all those come from women-led single parent households, what's interesting is that when the child goes to the father, they get the same results as a family with both the father and the mother in there. So that's an interesting statistic and thought that, you know, has come on down the pipe, yet and still we're going back and forth. Going back to the initial part of the conversation, and what started off last week was me stating that I give these great women their due. I give everybody their respect, but I want to give those great women their just due. And there's plenty of great women out there. I seen it, and I'm around them, and I applaud those women. I think on both sides, brother, is just to add, and I know you're probably going to speak to this as well, in regards to the progression of a person in general, is that when you get into these different relationships, and what I'm working on myself now is the grace and compassion part of the relationship. So I love to hear your thought process on, as we start to mature, and as we start to, hopefully we're growing, because I don't believe in just staying the same. You're either growing or you're dying. You're either going forward or going. There's nothing is still. Everything is always at motion. Even that rock is moving. It has energy particles that's moving, right? So talk to me a little bit about as we grow, or sometimes even if we stack, or even we start to take a step back, because, this journey isn't always just, the journey doesn't just go all the way up. You got your peaks and you got your valleys as we go through this human experience. Can you speak a little bit in regards to these relationships and these marriages, along with everything else you got to say? Because I'm here for it, about the grace and compassion aspect of it as well.
Yeah, I love it. That's a beautiful question, and just like alluding to those three different pieces of life. I think that's real good, and that's a huge statement right there. If we're not growing, we're dying. That's a really big statement. The thing about dying, coming from a medical standpoint, is that dying is that, like, it's not. See, if you even think about it, that's in a tense, right? Dying. It's not die or dead, but dying. So if you're dying, then that's a process.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for us to think about. If we're going to use that statement as something that as something that we believe in and we trust in, and we're going to impact our life with that whole statement, either we're growing or dying. These are processes, and any process can be stopped, can be overturned. It's like a clock. It's either ticking or it's not. But if it's not, then that means it's stopped, right? So it's not the same thing as dying, because if it's ticking, you take the battery out and it's stopped. And so it's a total different process, right? So when you start to think about growing or dying, there's a level in between it, which I would consider to be like stagnation, right? Not processing, not moving forward, not moving backwards. Stagnation can be considered, but even still, and this is not to put too much gray area in there. There's a difference between stagnation and then standing still. I just want to be clear with that, because standing still can still be growing. If you have a plant or a tree, you look at a tree and a tree is standing still, Every day you can go out there and you can measure the height of it and the width of it. You can say, hey, you know what? The tree isn't growing. But until you dig up the ground and check the roots, you don't really know if it was growing at all. Because the way I learned, Elder Hollis would always tell me this. He said, one thing that I've learned is that when you can't grow higher, you can grow wider. And when you can't grow wider, you can grow deeper. And I think that's a huge lesson to learn. So we can grow deeper. So just in answering your question about the grace, and about, not just the grace, but also, our inward development, it is extremely important. Me and my wife did not always get along. When we first came together, we got along because we were more like Bonnie and Clyde. We were doing our own thing. She was my ride or die. That's exactly who she was. I'm not going to, refrain from telling people just how it is. But then something happened. We had a kid. And when I saw the kid, it reminded me of my father. And when I was reminded of my father, I was like, my father wasn't there for me. I'm going to be there for my child. I'm looking like Clyde up in this beast. And so what does that mean? Somebody's coming after me, and I can't have them come after me and shoot my little kid. And then I'm going to die. So what do I need to do? Change right now, not later, like that. And I started to make moves to change. And she made moves to change. I changed faster. I made choices, y'all. I decided, y'all, I can't be this man because people want me dead. I can't live this life because people threaten my life. What I'm going to do? So I changed. She couldn't change as fast as me. My wife was horrible to me. It was hell. But the grace of God showed up in me, and I was patient.
Uh-huh.
And it took years. And then she grew, and she began to blossom. And I grew. And during that growth, I got tired of dealing with the hell.
Real quick, brother, because I wanna speak to that point of the patient because I think it's so very important. I know Anna, give us a couple of minutes, please, because the brother just getting started, and I'm learning here. I'm writing stuff down.